Living full-time on a cruise ship sounds like the retirement a lot of people dreamed about. No mortgage, no yard work, meals handled, sunsets on demand, and for a few months, it might actually feel that way. But there are things that only become clear after the honeymoon phase fades. Things the brochures do not mention. Things that start quietly and then grow into real problems. If you're thinking about making a cruise ship your permanent home in retirement, this video is the one you need to watch first. Number 10. The ship was not built for you to age in. A cruise ship is designed around one thing: keeping vacationers happy for 7 to 14 days. Everything on board serves that purpose. The bars stay open late. The buffet lines surge at noon. The entertainment runs until midnight. The pool decks fill with families on summer break. The ship's rhythms are set by the youngest and most energetic passengers, and the infrastructure follows their needs. None of that is built around what an aging body actually needs from a daily living environment. Retirement living on land done well considers light levels, flooring surfaces, bathroom safety, elevator access, noise management, and proximity to medical care. A ship considers none of those things as a long-term environment. It considers them as liability avoidance during a vacation, and those are not the same thing. The corridors are long. The ship moves. The lighting in most cabins is poor for anything beyond getting dressed. The beds are not medical grade. The bathrooms are compact and wet floor prone by design because compact sells cabins. None of this matters much when you're spending 10 nights aboard. It starts to matter considerably when you're on your third month. There's also the noise question. Ships are never truly quiet. The engines run constantly. The HVAC system has its own register. Above-deck events carry through ceilings in ways people don't anticipate. For older adults who need quality sleep to manage health conditions, that background noise is not an inconvenience. It's a genuine medical variable. As your body ages, your environment matters more, not less. A ship's physical layout was engineered for movement and profit, not for people managing joint pain, balance issues, or fatigue. And the older you get, the wider that gap becomes. Number 9. Your health coverage has a geography problem. This is one that surprises people badly, often at the worst possible time. Medicare, the standard health coverage for most American retirees, does not follow you to sea. It does not cover treatment on a ship, and it does not cover treatment in a foreign port. A few Medicare Advantage plans offer limited emergency coverage internationally, but the key word is limited, and the claims process is anything but simple. So if you have a cardiac event in the middle of the Caribbean, or a fall on a tender boat off the coast of Greece, you're likely paying out of pocket first and fighting for reimbursement later, if you get it at all. Travel insurance can fill some of that gap, but travel insurance is not designed for permanent residents. Most policies cap coverage at 60 to 90 days of continuous travel. So if you're living on a ship full-time, you are not a traveler in the legal sense anymore. You're a resident without a home country's medical system behind you. Specialty insurance for long-term cruise living exists, but it's expensive, often restrictive, and requires you to read the exclusions very carefully. Pre-existing conditions, which most retirees have, are frequently excluded or severely limited. The coverage question alone deserves months of legal and financial consultation before you ever book your first segment, and most people do not give it months. Number 8. Getting your medications is not as simple as it sounds. Most retirees manage at least one chronic condition. Many manage several: hypertension, diabetes, thyroid disorders, cholesterol, arthritis, anxiety, or sleep disorders all require consistent medication that has to come from somewhere. On land, you have a pharmacy you know, a doctor who handles refills, and a system you've been navigating for years. On a ship sailing between international ports, that system breaks down faster than people expect. Cruise ship medical centers carry basic medications for emergencies. They're not pharmacies. They cannot dispense long-term prescriptions for conditions they did not diagnose. If you run low on a controlled substance, a blood thinner, or an insulin product, you cannot simply walk into the ship's medical desk and ask for more. Getting refills from home requires someone onshore who can manage your prescriptions, a doctor who will authorize refills to international addresses, and a reliable mail system in whatever port you happen to be docking in. And that last part is where plans fall apart. Some medications require refrigeration. Some are temperature sensitive in transit. Some simply cannot be shipped internationally due to customs restrictions. People who have managed this successfully will tell you it required meticulous planning and a network of help back home. People who have managed it badly will tell you they ended up in a foreign clinic trying to explain their medical history through a language barrier while the ship sat in port for 6 hours. Number 7. Mobility limitations quietly shrink your world. One of the selling points of cruise life is all the places you get to see. A new port every few days. New countries, new cultures, new experiences. But getting to those experiences is physical work that people underestimate. Not every port has a cruise terminal. Many ships anchor offshore and tender passengers to land via small boats. Tenders are not accessible for wheelchairs. They require stepping down into a rocking vessel, often with swells making the process genuinely hazardous. If you have balance issues, joint pain, or limited lower body strength, you may be watching certain ports from the deck while everyone else goes ashore. And the ports themselves vary wildly. Some have paved walkways from the terminal. Others require a walk across uneven cobblestone, up steep hills, through crowds, and in heat. The excursions marketed as suitable for all abilities are often not. What happens over time is a gradual contraction. The things you came to do become harder to access. You start staying on the ship more. The world that was supposed to feel bigger starts feeling smaller, and you're doing it from a cabin. Mobility changes as people age, and they rarely change in a direction that makes life on a moving ship easier. Number 6. A cabin is not a home, and your body will tell you. Cruise cabins range in size, but even the generous ones were built around a single premise. People do not spend much time in them. You sleep, shower, dress, and leave. Living in a cabin full-time as an older adult means spending far more time in that space than it was designed for. And the longer you're in it, the more the limitations accumulate. Storage is not built for permanent wardrobes. Closets are compact. There's nowhere to spread out a medical device, organize medications, keep physical therapy equipment, or set up a reading area that does not double as your eating area. The lighting is typically poor for reading. The seating is minimal. The mattress is standardized, not suited for your particular back or hip. Balcony cabins give you outside space, but wind, noise, and ship exhaust makes balconies far less usable than they look in the photographs. For a week, these are minor inconveniences. For a year, they are physical and psychological wear. The body signals its discomfort in small ways at first. Poor sleep, stiff mornings, nowhere to sit that feels right, nowhere to move that feels like yours. A home is not just shelter. It's a physical environment calibrated to the person living in it. A ship cabin cannot be that, regardless of how much you spend on the room category. Number 5. Full-time cruising can quietly erode the routines that keep you healthy. The medical research on healthy aging consistently points to a few things: regular sleep cycles, consistent physical activity, social continuity, and structured daily routine. A ship's environment works against most of those. Sleep is disrupted by engine vibration, movement, late-night entertainment noise, and the irregular pressure changes that come from constantly transiting time zones. People who are sensitive sleepers find that they never fully adjust. Physical activity sounds easy on a ship with a gym and a walking deck. In practice, the gym is small, often busy, and not equipped for the kind of rehabilitation or low-impact movement that aging joints require. Walking on the deck sounds appealing until the weather is bad or the ship is rolling. Diet is harder to control than people expect. They're eating from a service operation. The food is plentiful, but it's not calibrated to your cardiologist's recommendations or your diabetic management plan. Controlling sodium, managing portions, avoiding specific allergens in a buffet environment all require ongoing effort that becomes exhausting over months. The routines that hold older people together are hard to build on a platform that changes ports, menus, staff, and passenger populations every week. If this is giving you something to think about, take a second to like and subscribe before we get into the second half. Now, number 4, you're not building a community, you're renting one. The social dimensions of cruise life gets talked about a lot, and mostly in positive terms. You meet people, you have dinner companions, there's always someone at the bar who wants to talk. But for older adults considering full-time cruise life, the social reality deserves a more honest look. The people you meet are passing through. So are you, technically, but they are passing through on a different schedule. The couple you had dinner with 4 nights in a row disembarks in Fort Lauderdale, and you never see them again. You start over. New table mates, new neighbors in the corridor, new conversations from the beginning. And what that means over time is that you're perpetually in the early stages of social contact. You never get to the depth. You never get to the trust. You never build the kind of friendship where someone notices if you're not okay, because they barely know you yet. For retirees, genuine community is one of the most important protective factors for mental and physical health. It is not something you can borrow from a rotating passenger roster. The ship provides the illusion of social richness. The bartender who knows your drink, the staff member who greets you by name, the cruise director who makes you feel like part of the family. But staff relationships are professional courtesies. They are warm within their context, but they're also transactional. Anyone who has lived on a ship long enough eventually understands the difference between being liked and being known. Real community takes time to build, shared history to deepen, and physical proximity to maintain. A rotating passenger population gives you none of those things in any lasting way. What it gives you instead is the social simulation of community, which is pleasant, and which runs dry in ways that are hard to predict until you're 300 days in and realize you cannot name a single person who would notice if you didn't show up for breakfast. Number 3, when family needs you, the distance is real. This one does not get talked about enough. People considering full-time cruise life often frame it around freedom, and there is freedom in it in the early months, but the freedom is not symmetrical. When your grandchild is born, you're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with a 12-hour flight between you and the hospital. When your adult child calls in a crisis, you're not an hour away, you're a logistics problem. When a sibling gets a serious diagnosis, attending matters, and being there matters. A ship makes being there slow, expensive, and complicated. Emergencies require getting off a ship at whatever port is nearest, finding flights that may not exist from that location, and doing it all while managing the emotional weight of whatever's happening at home. Retirees who live on land and have a difficult week with family can show up. They can sit in the waiting room. They can drop off food. They can be present in the specific physical way that aging parents and grandparents want to be when it counts. Full-time cruising trades that proximity for convenience, and the trade feels acceptable until the moment it's not. Most people who have lived through a family crisis from a ship will tell you that the helplessness of being far away with no good options for getting home quickly is a feeling they did not fully anticipate. Being a phone call away is not the same as being in the room. And for older adults whose central identity is built around family, that distance does something to them the itinerary cannot fix. Number 2, the math can become brutal on a fixed income. This is the entry point most people start with when researching full-time cruise life. So let's be direct about what the numbers actually look like. Entry-level full-time cruise packages start around $100 per person per day on the lower end. More realistic pricing for a decent cabin with adequate space is closer to $150 to $200 per person per day. That is $45,000 to $73,000 per person per year before any extras. And extras are real. Shore excursions, specialty dining, internet, which for retirees staying in touch with family is not optional, gratuities, medical visits, which are billed at rates that will genuinely shock you, any items purchased on board, any flights to join or leave the ship. Now add the insurance gap from point 9. Add medication logistics costs. Add flights home for family emergencies. For couples on Social Security plus a moderate pension, the math rarely works without drawing down savings. And drawing down savings in your late 60s or early 70s at a pace set by cruise ship pricing is a problem that compounds with time. The financial fragility of full-time cruise life is not always visible in year 1. The first year often runs on savings that feel like they can absorb the overage. It's in year 2 or 3 that the compounding starts to show. By then, you have no shore-based housing to return to, a medical situation that has likely evolved, and a lifestyle that has become your entire social and physical infrastructure. Getting out at that point is not just inconvenient, it is disorienting in ways that people deeply underestimate when they're still in the planning phase. Number 1. For some retirees, full-time cruising becomes an escape, not a life. This is the one that nobody publishes in the cruising forums, and the one that matters most. A significant number of older adults who commit to long-term or full-time cruise living are not primarily motivated by wanderlust. They're motivated by pain. The death of a spouse, the house that suddenly feels too large and too quiet, children who have moved on, a social world that narrowed without them noticing until one day it was very small. The cruise ship solves all of these problems, at least on the surface. It fills the space with noise and activity. It produces the sensation of forward movement. It replaces the empty dining room with a buffet and a crowd. Now, there's nothing shameful in any of that. Grief and loneliness are real, and the instinct to escape them is entirely human. The problem is that a ship is not a solution to grief. It's a context change. The loss travels with you, and at sea, far from the people and places that actually carry your history, the grief can grow strange and isolated in ways that are hard to articulate until you're in the middle of it. Therapists who work with older adults in late life transitions are consistent on one point. The things that actually rebuild life after loss is not motion. They are roots, continuity, familiar faces over years, not weeks. A place that knows your name for reasons that go beyond your room number. A ship can be a remarkable short-term reprieve. It can give you perspective, distance, and time to breathe, but it cannot be a substitute for building a life. And the older you are when you make it your permanent home, the more that distinction costs you. None of this means full-time cruising is wrong for everyone. Some people find a version of it that genuinely works, usually with extensive planning, the right health solution, financial flexibility, and clear-eyed honesty about what they're choosing rather than what they're running from. But if you're drawn to the idea because life on land is hard right now, lonely, or empty after a loss, it's worth sitting with that for a while before you commit to something that trades your roots for a room number. The ocean is beautiful, the ships are comfortable, and the life waiting for you on land, built with intention and people who know your name for the right reasons, can be just as free. Now, if this gave you something to think about, like the video and subscribe. There's more where this came from, and watch the next video on your screen. Remember, your voyage is just beginning.